Another approach, which is very simple, kind of related, is our taxation structure right now. Right now, for example, we tax hard work. You go work hard, you earn an income, they're going to take some of that income away. And that's taxing what people make. Another approach is to tax what they take. When you extract resources that you didn't create, when oil companies come and take up the tar sands or use immense amounts of water to do so, um, or chop down forests that they didn't plant, well, they're taking away from society. Maybe we should tax what people take, the values created by nature, instead of what they make. So the bumper sticker, tax what we tax what we take, not what we make. And part of this idea is, for example, we just saw a real estate boom where land values were going up by 20% per year in many areas. I wasn't, when I bought a house in Burlington, the value went up by 20% per year. That wasn't for anything I did. That was what society did. You know, they improved the park near me. They're going to improve the roads, maintain the roads, good schools. That increases the value of my land. That should be taxed away in my mind. I should be taxed on the value of my land, which is something I take. I'm not creating that value. Society creates that value. Interesting thing is, if we tax the value of land, I'm a speculator. I buy land, the value goes up, so do my taxes. It makes no sense for me to speculate in land. So it gets rid of the speculative motive in land, and suddenly you're going to not have these speculative bubbles that just led to the crashing of our economy. Another interesting thing about taxing these land values, let's say Edmonton decides to put in a nice light rail system. I guess you already do have pretty good public transportation, but you know, a lot of U.S. cities don't. You put in a nice light rail system, that really raises the value of land all along the rail system. If you made that rail system free, it would raise the value of the land even more. If you actually tax away that increase in land value, often it could pay for the light rail system. So you would have clean, green transportation readily funded by taxing the values created by putting in that clean, green transportation. So that's a idea of tax what you take, not what you make. Related to that is tax bads, not goods. So if I'm going to pollute that atmosphere, drive my car, pollute the atmosphere, if I'm going to chop down trees and degrade the ecosystem, tax the damage we do. Instead of taxing consumption, or if I produce something useful, why tax that? Why not tax away when I produce something bad?
Josh, what we've talked about mostly here is examples at the international level. We've talked a little bit about local examples. Let's expand upon that a little bit more at the local level, and in particular, what other advice might you have for the city of Edmonton?
At the local level, I think there's a lot that can be done. First of all, what I would say is we've tended to focus, local governments, national governments, they really tend to emphasize economic growth, and we want more and more growth. What we really need to focus on is quality of life. We want more rewarding, healthier, high quality lives, and that takes a lot more than just consumption. You know, for one thing, very, very important is social interaction. So cities can actually design around the idea that they're going to create spaces that facilitate, you know, human interaction, human communication. You know, high-speed highways and cars transportation, that separates us into our own little cubicles, isolates us from society. You know, there's cities, for example, in Sweden, Malmö in Sweden is the city that really designs spaces to encourage people to walk and interact and meet each other and have social reactions and discourage cars. And they do that to improve quality of life. So we talk a lot about social capital, the trust and the relations between people. Cities can play a big role in stimulating that. Public events and things that bring people together. Human capital is the other thing is, you know, education and health. Cities can play a big role in focusing on improving education systems, improving health systems, investing in libraries and culture that really develop our human capital. We really need to focus on developing our natural capital, the natural resources and benefits we get. Edmonton has been a very big park system, you know, nicely connecting the city, and I'm sure it plays a very important part in the lives of Edmontonians. We need to do that everywhere, and they've actually studies show that if you put somebody in a hospital room that overlooks scenic beauty and parks, nature, they get better faster than if they're overlooking industrial settings. We depend for our well-being, our health, on clean, green, open spaces. We evolved that way. We need it. When cities focus on economic growth, they're really focusing on what we call built capital, things that are human-made, produced. And instead, we've got to also focus on social capital and human capital and natural capital, have a much broader vision of what it takes to create a high-quality, desirable life. And again, as I said earlier, that at any level, we need to focus on changing our notions of what's biophysically possible, what's ecologically and physically possible, our paradigm, our worldview. The idea right now, Edmonton relies heavily on fossil fuel revenues and uses that to sustain your quality of life. But you have to recognize that those fossil fuels are a finite resource, pretty vast, but finite. And they cause potentially irreversible ecological damage. And we've got to acknowledge those biophysical limits. And until Edmonton acknowledges or Alberta acknowledges those biophysical limits, there's not much need to think about alternative pathways. You also have to think about redefining your goals. If the goal is, maintaining that super high per capita income and consuming more and more, then nobody's doing it better than you guys. But if the goal is to have really healthy, happy, rewarding lives, not just for this generation, but for future generations, and ensuring that we have clean, green spaces that keep us mentally and healthily fit, or mentally and physically fit, that we have spaces for interacting with each other, which, fossil fuel-based transportation is not conducive to that. Until you change your goals, you're not going to really change your approach. So I think, in Edmonton and in all small communities, they can really focus on developing these different attitudes. I really also think that we should shift taxes off of what people add in value to their properties and to the values of a land a city adds to. So Edmonton, as you guys build the public infrastructure and make a higher quality of life with all your parks, the value of the neighboring land goes up and up. And that land, if you tax that value, that gives you more resources to keep increasing the values of the land. If somebody, in contrast, puts a lot of energy into making a beautiful home and put their own hard work and sweat into doing that, why tax that away? Why take away what they produce with their own hard work? Why not take away the values the city created in the first place? So I think that that's an important approach that cities can do, is essentially tax what people take and not what they make. One thing I think to be interesting for Edmonton, I mentioned earlier that information is not like other resources. The more we use information, the better it gets. Information is going to help solve a lot of our problems. We need to develop new carbon-free technologies. We need to develop environmentally friendly technologies. Edmonton's a leader in the area of technology and in the leader of fossil fuels. What I really think Edmonton should be doing is taking the profits from fossil fuels, the value essentially of the fossil fuel in the ground. Nobody created that. You can take that away from the businesses without decreasing the incentive of the businesses to actually extract those fossil fuels. It's a value they didn't create. You invest that then in alternative technologies. So Edmonton could become a center for new clean green technologies, and you could have like an open source approach. Any business locating in Edmonton has free access to this wealth of shared knowledge about environmentally friendly technologies. And this is going to create a huge dynamic of people saying, wow, if I go locate there, I can use all this knowledge that's created by Edmonton's universities and public sector. And, with the condition that if you add to that wealth of knowledge, it's available to everybody, but it suddenly is going to make Edmonton the hot spot to go to develop the new technologies for when the oil runs out, for when the climate can't support more emissions. And it's a new approach recognizing information improves through use. If Edmonton becomes a technology hotspot for green technologies, it attracts all this wisdom, all this knowledge. That knowledge then circulates faster and faster through Edmonton in a win-win thing. If you, ration use of the technology with prices, you create artificial scarcity.